PA student at the UT Health Science Center in San Antonio, Texas. I'm in my second semester, just chugging along in PA school. Outside of PA school, I'm also a mother to an amazing 4-year-old daughter, and I'm 27. I'm from Texas. I'm from San Antonio, actually. So yeah, just living the PA life.
Yeah. How has that been with, we'll jump into more of your story, but how has that been with COVID? Has that affected your schooling?
It has, yes. Not all bad. I try to see the positive in it sometimes. Like, it's nice to be able to do classes at home and be in the comfort of my home and, just everything that goes along with that. But it did affect, especially our first semester. Instead of having that cadaver lab for anatomy, we didn't get it at all. So it was, so that completely changed that whole perspective. And we were 100% online the entire first semester. So it was actually kind of funny because even though we've already been in school with each other for a semester, and me and my classmates have known each other via the internet, we didn't meet in person and for the first time until this semester, because now we're allowed to go twice a week for clinical skills and patient eval. So it's very strange, that weird feeling like I know you, but I really don't.
Such strange times. So not so unexpected.
But making the best of it.
Right. That's all you can do. All right. Well, let's jump back a little bit. I want to hear about just kind of your interest in medicine and what brought you to the PA profession.
Sure. So unlike most people, I actually did grow up knowing what a PA was, because my dad is a PA, and he actually was in PA school when I was born. So literally my entire life he's been a PA. He was in nephrology for a while. Now he's in primary care. So I grew up being able to kind of see the behind the scenes of a PA life, actually seeing the quote unquote work-life balance and the family aspect and everything. So PA was something that was always on my radar, but I wasn't dead set, I know I want to be a PA and only a PA. I knew I wanted to be in the medical field. My mom is an ultrasound tech, so I also dabbled with that as well, and just all the aspects of medicine. It was just really, really interesting to me. But I originally started undergrad as pre-med, did the whole bachelor's in biology route, all of that fun stuff, the fun MCAT and everything that goes
Oh gosh, you really did it.
The whole nine. So I actually ended up pursuing podiatry because, similar to PA, it allows you to be a provider and help patients, but with also more of a work-life balance, I feel, than other traditional medical routes, being a traditional MD or DO. And it was just a good fit for me at the time. So I actually was in podiatry school when I was 22. So I was going along that route, and then I guess God had a different plan for me, and I ended up finding out I was going to be a mom in the middle of podiatry school in New York City. So really, really crazy times. I had to kind of pivot. I was granted a medical leave of absence, so I was thinking about going back. However, after my daughter was born, just the thought of uprooting her and living in New York, her dad and I were together at the time. Even then, just all of the debt I was going to be in, and New York City isn't really the place that you would find ideal for starting a family. So I kind of pivoted, switched routes, pursued another passion of mine, which is teaching, and ended up getting my master's in education, being a teacher for a little bit. And meanwhile, flash forward to today, I still couldn't give up that dream in the back of my head of medicine, and just that desire to be a provider and to help, patients in the medical field, although I did love teaching as well, but I just something in me just couldn't give it up. And I decided to see what would happen if I did apply to be a PA, and Of course, I knew that it was something that could be done with a family, since my dad did it when I was an infant. And even though I'm a woman, I'm like, hey, it's 2020, equal rights over here. So I was like, what's the worst that can happen? Let me just try and see. And didn't even expect to get in, to be completely honest. But here I am. So.
Oh my gosh, I have so many questions. It's like a zigzag path, but you got here. Okay, so just quick question. How long is podiatry school?
So it's similar to medical school in that it's 4 years.
Okay.
And then you do a 3-year surgical residency. So,
oh, wow. So that is like a longer path.
yeah, and I just didn't feel comfortable, essentially not spending any time with my daughter for the first 7 years of her life. So
that's hard. Oh, okay. I also want to know, so your dad being a PA and being both in medicine and in the PA profession for so long, what were his thoughts? Like, was he like, go do what you want? Or was he like, don't do PA? Like, was there any, like, I'm interested to see, just since he's probably seen it change so much, like, what his opinion was.
Almost 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's always genuinely loved his job. Like, I've never heard him once complain about any part of his job, really. So he definitely encouraged me to pursue what I want. However, I think my family was kind of like the traditional family where even though, like, my dad loved being a PA, and of course for your children, you always, quote unquote, want more, quote unquote. So they were kind of driving force to be like, oh, you should be a physician. Whereas, like, me in my heart, I would have loved to just been a PA from the beginning. But I think part of that, pressure from family and I'm a big, like, trying to work on not being a people pleaser. But back when I was, just a young adult, you kind of want to please your family. And like I said, I've always been interested in medicine. So I was willing to go whichever route, ended up working best for me. And at the time that was podiatry school. So they were really proud though, despite whichever way I ended up. And I dabbled in a little bit of everything during undergrad. So yeah, but now it ended up fitting that I'm following in his footsteps. And of course he couldn't be more proud to have me join along.
Yes, that's so cool. That is so cool. That's interesting. So yeah, my dad will still say, like, so when are you going back to get your doctorate? And I'm like, never, unless someone else is paying for it. Like, I'm good.
I want to be a PA. And honestly, back in the day too, I didn't even think that if I applied to PA school even back then that I would get in, which is crazy because people are like, but isn't medical school harder to get into? And I'm like, but honestly, if you think about the numbers wise, PA schools are smaller, they accept less people, and they have just as many applicants.
Hard, yeah.
So I was very intimidated by that too. So
yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so you were teaching. And then you decided, like, okay, not completely fulfilled. I got to go towards PA school. What steps did you have to take? Like, what did you have to do to make that happen? Yeah,
so thankfully, I call myself, like, the traditional turned non-traditional student. So unlike many non-traditional students who their undergrad is in something maybe completely different outside of medicine, and they have to take a lot of prereqs that they didn't have as part of their bachelor degree. Thankfully, I did have my biology degree, so I had all of the prereqs except for microbiology. So I knew, okay, well, first off, let me start there. Let me take a microbiology class, get that out of the way, and see if I, still had it in me, because education classes are a lot different than science classes, which I learned that. I was like, okay, let me see if I can still do this, Granted, I had graduated undergrad in, like, 2014.
Okay.
So it was, like, 2016 when I was in education, and then 2018 when I did the microbiology class. And that went well. I ended the course with an A, and I was like, okay, maybe I've still got it in me. This is a good sign. So I did that, and also at the same time did some shadowing. Of course, with my dad being a PA, I was able to do a lot of shadowing with him, thankfully, in his clinic with other providers there too. And at the same time, volunteering with my church to get back into that volunteering and get those hours as well. And I had, thankfully as well, when I was pre-med, I was a medical scribe. So all of those counted towards my healthcare experience hours. And some schools actually, I guess, counted that towards the patient care, or, you know, or they didn't have a problem with the fact that that was what my experience was in. So yeah, I didn't have to do too much, but those were the steps that I did take to kind of get back into the medical route and apply to PA school.
Nice. Okay, so when it came time to apply, what did that look like as far as like choosing programs and how many programs? Like, what were you looking for in a PA program?
Sure. So now that I am a parent, I did make sure that I was being practical in my application process as well. I knew I wasn't going to go live in New York City again. That's just not, you know, being a single 21-year-old versus being a mom at 27, it's different lifestyle there.
Yeah.
So I did apply to almost all except for one of the schools in Texas. Thankfully, Texas has a good amount of programs. So I was really wanting to stay in state, keep the costs down. And I did apply to all of those. The only one that I didn't was because, like I said, I was traditional turned untraditional. So some of my coursework was too old for their requirements. And I wasn't going to take anatomy all over again and all these other courses just for one school. And then I did apply also to 2 schools in Alabama because my mom is from Alabama. So I have a bunch of extended family over there, another second support system. So I knew that that was another option for me as well.
Nice. My extended family's from Alabama too. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Different than Texas, but I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
Very different from Georgia too, but no, it's fun. All right. So then, okay. So you applied to how many programs?
It ended up being a total of 9.
Okay. What did that look like as far as what were the results?
So I applied to all 9, and I considered that my lucky number because when I was applying to podiatry school, a little known fact, there's only 9, or at least at that time, there may be more now. There's only 9 programs in the country for podiatry.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That seems like so, not a lot. Like, that's crazy.
Exactly. You would think there would be more. I mean, there's so many PA programs, over 300, but there's only 9 podiatry schools. So I figured this is my lucky number, and, maybe it's a good omen, right? So I applied to 9. I was thankfully and shockingly to myself invited to interview at 7 out of the 9. And I accepted the first 2 and actually attended those. And I was also very thankful to have been accepted at both of the 2 that I did attend the interview. And so after that, to save money on costs from travel and all of that, because it was before COVID and you actually were going in person, so I declined the following 5 interviews after that.
Wow, that is so impressive. What do you think, and maybe they told you or maybe you just know, but what do you think landed you those interviews? Like, what stood out on your application?
Yeah, I know. I was very shocked, to be honest. I wasn't, like I said, I went into this thinking, a lot of people have to apply again, and I felt, I'm trying to get back into things. Yeah,
nobody thinks they're going to get in.
So many voices of self-doubt, so then when I started getting invited, I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's, all right, let's go with this. And honestly, they never really told me, but I would imagine that maybe it was when I was an undergrad, I did do really, really well. Like, I was that driven type A, that stereotypical pre-med young. I'm totally different now. I'm much more chill. I'm a mom now, so I realize, life.
Nothing is in our control.
Exactly.
That's how I feel. I'm more chill now too. And my family's like, "What happened to you?" And I'm like, "I think I got old and had a child."
Exactly, it changes you.
Yeah.
Completely. But yeah, back then I was really I was that person who was like, "Oh, sorry, I can't go out with you to hang out on weekends. I've got to study." And so I did really stay focused with school, and I was able to keep my GPA pretty competitive, and I was able to somehow graduate a year early. So I think on top of all of that, it just kind of showed, like, while I was also working like multiple part-time jobs, so I think they were able to see like that I was able to handle stuff like that. And then I think at the same time, having a graduate degree in something outside of the medical field also probably piqued their interest too, because it not only let them know, like, even though I did that when my daughter was 5 months old when I enrolled in school. Yeah, so I think it kind of proved to them, like, even though I am a mom now, I can still handle being a student too. And I think it just gave me another perspective, because I can also put my like teacher hat on and see things from that and everything that I learned along that way. So I think it made me kind of stand out a little more to be traditional and non-traditional.
It sounds very well-rounded. Like you have kind of a little bit of everything. So let's talk about being a mom and how that played into first your applications. Is that something that you talked about at all in your personal statement or interviews? I get a lot of questions of people like, should I bring up that I have a family? Should I bring up that I'm a parent? What was your approach?
Yeah, that was something that I debated too, because you never know what schools are going to think and if they have had experiences with, parent students or not. So I did struggle with, like, should I mention it? Should I not? But then I felt almost weird to not mention it in my personal statement, because being a mom is such a big part of my life, and I do fully identify myself as being a mother. So I felt, if I was being a little fake if I didn't mention it, and it's such a big part of me that I did end up not, it wasn't the entirety of my personal statement, but I did have a line in there about how I am a mother, and how that plays into my desires to go into medicine, and like just how that's shaped who I am today. And thankfully, that didn't seem to deter the schools from wanting to get to know me and to invite me for interviews. So I did mention that in my personal statement. I don't think it did come up during any of the interviews exactly, but it was there in the personal statement. So
okay, so they were aware. Has that, like, okay, so now being in PA school, how have you found a balance? Is it, using support system, being organized? Like, what has helped you manage student life and mom life?
Yeah, it was very intimidating to me. I'm not going to lie, because not only am I a mother, but I'm a single mother. So it's like, I don't know. It was very, very intimidating to me before I started, just like thinking about it, like, how am I going to balance spending time with my daughter and schoolwork? Because, I knew I had done grad school before, of course, but PA school is like a beast unlike no other.
Yes.
So I definitely was like, okay, I need to get a plan of action so that way I can try to take this on as best as possible. So I definitely decided to reach out for help in my support system ahead of time. And I did make a plan with just family members, like my mother, my ex-mother-in-law, just family members who were willing to help me out, maybe like one Saturday, take turns, so that way I could spend a majority of my Saturdays I spend studying. And that has been really helpful, along with my daughter does go to pre-K. So thankfully during the week, I have that time to be in Zoom school and then study on my own before I pick her up. And yeah, I definitely had to learn how to reach out for help and to fully embrace the whole it takes a village mindset, because I know when she was first born, I was that mom who was like, no, she's my daughter, it's my responsibility, but I've definitely come around, and I'm thankful that I did, because I wouldn't be able to do it without my village,
Yeah, no, that's hard, especially when they're like older. I feel like a newborn would be easier because they don't really do much, versus like when they're old. Like my 2-year-old will not let me get on my phone or my computer. She doesn't want me on them, and so she like recognizes that that's like when I'm working, and so it gets so hard.
Yeah, but it's been better than what I think I scared myself more than it actually has been an issue. Like, it's thankfully been a lot better than I had even thought it was going to be. So I'm very thankful for that. It hasn't been a huge issue. And my daughter's been very flexible, and like children are they adjust really well, more than we give them credit. And she's been really, really good about the adjustment.
Yeah. And I think it's good for them to see us working and studying and doing those things, and like ultimately like you're doing it for her, and it'll be such a great thing for her and for you, because you'll be happy.
Exactly.
Yeah. But okay, so what has been so far, I guess, the most either difficult or surprising thing about PA school? Like the one thing that you wish you knew before you started?
Sure. I think for me, the hardest part was definitely just adjusting to it, because like I said, of course, you know, I'd been to school before, I'd even been to grad school before, but PA school is not like anything else that you can experience. Really, it's genuinely not. And I know everyone says that, but it's because it's true. So that was really hard for me, just being able to balance and figure out how much I needed to study, and if I did have free time to do something outside of school and mom life and stuff like that. So it was a lot more stressful last semester, my first semester. Whereas this semester, I feel like I've kind of found my groove, and I've got that balance now that I know, okay, this is how much I can be studying for this and still make the grade that I want to. And I do have time to, you know, maybe go see a movie with my friends and stuff like that. Whereas last semester, I was almost like afraid that if I did anything else, I would fail or something, you know? So it was very scary, just getting used to it and letting myself know, like, you're gonna be okay, you're doing this, like, your grades are fine. And I think after a whole semester of that, I finally proved to myself, like, okay, maybe, you know, this is gonna be fine. Like, you don't have to be so uptight about it, and you can find that balance. So I've definitely been working on maintaining a balance between my daughter and, you know, free time and studying, of course, in school, and just trying to have a life while in PA school a little bit, which I think is possible if you can balance everything, and if you know your limits, and you just, you know, if you just try, it can happen, actually.
Yeah, and I think for everyone it takes a little while to like get to that point. Like it's just like, and that's what even pretty much everyone I talk to, even thinking about myself, like it's usually like second semester where you're kind of like, okay, something's got to change because I'm not going to survive. And you start being a little more flexible, and nicer to ourselves. So
yeah, I really like this semester a lot better than last semester, and I know each semester is going to be different, so it may be totally different, you know, after spring semester starts. But for now, I feel like I'm in a good place. So I'm thankful for that. Good
weeks and hard weeks.
Yeah.
So what?
Big for the craziness.
Yes, for sure. So what do you see, since I think it's interesting since you do have the background of like seeing your dad work in different jobs and a good amount of shadowing, and then like also kind of your experience in different areas, what do you see like yourself going into, or like what do you want out of your job as a PA? And did that come up at all in your interviews, like the switch, like did they ask about like you're switching from podiatry or you're switching from teaching?
Yeah, no, actually, I was surprised. I wasn't sure if they were going to do that as maybe a quote-unquote red flag, that I was in podiatry school and I didn't, you know, finish. I didn't know what they were going to think, like, about the switch, and no one brought it up in any of the interviews, so that was fine with me.
Nice.
And the teaching did get brought up, but no one really looked at it in a negative way. I think, if anything, they saw it as a positive, of something that I could add to the experience, and that, you know, I've learned to be a good listener, and I've learned to be able to explain things in ways that can make sense to, you know, my students who were, you know, English language learners or who were small children. So I'm used to being able to do that, and I think that would suit me well when I am with my patients. And so thankfully that didn't come up either. And yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I just was curious because I feel like they would ask about that, but maybe not.
No, surprised. And I thought maybe too they might ask about like the gap, since it had been a while since I had done some of those things like scribing and my undergrad work, and thankfully I guess it wasn't an issue to them. So.
That's what, hey. If it doesn't come up, you just highlight the strengths and then move on. Yeah, go with it. But where do you see, like, what is your kind of dream job, or like what does that look like to you that you think you want to pursue?
Yeah. So I know, of course, maybe it might change once I get to clinical year, but as of right now, and even before, back when I was a scribe, I had scribed in the ER, and I had also scribed like in like internal medicine, but it was mainly with like a large geriatric population, the clinic that I was at, and I just really, really fell in love with that. So I think also having shadowed with my dad, who is in, primary care, I really, really have a heart for just primary care, family medicine, and I know that almost is like the minority now. I feel like a lot of people I encounter, they're like, oh, I want to specialize right away. I want to be in surgery or derm or in the ED, and I'm just really, really content with being in the clinic, building that rapport with my patients, and just, I don't know. So that's where I definitely see myself, at least to begin with. And then if I did ever get that itch to specialize, that's another thing about PA that I love, is that I always had that option if I did choose to do so in the future. But I genuinely would love to be in family medicine or primary care, something along those lines.
Yeah, you would be great at that. Well, so kind of to end it, and then you can tell so everyone can kind of find you, but what would be your advice to someone who I guess was in your shoes, who was like a single parent, not completely content in their job, kind of wanting to move towards PA? Like, what would your advice or reassurance be to that person?
Yeah, I would definitely let them know, like, I feel very driven to share my story for that reason, because I know already just being a parent puts you in a minority. Like, not the majority of PA students are parents, and then those that are, it's like an even smaller fraction, almost non-existent, it feels like sometimes, that are single parents. And so it does feel a little isolating at times. You do feel like you're the only one who's in this position, but you're not. At the end of the day, that's why I wanted to share my story, to let other single parents know, like, it is possible. And obviously it's not going to look the same as other students who don't have families or who have that spousal support to raise the children with them, but it is possible. Where there's a will, there's a way. And honestly, if you just don't take no for an answer and you just keep trying and remember your why, like for me, seeing my daughter every day, like I remember, okay, this is why I'm doing it. Like, even though times may be hard and I'm like, why did I sign up for this again, And then I remember, like, no, I'm setting such a good example for her, and I'm showing her that, look, even though you're a woman, even though you're a mom, it doesn't matter. Like, if you want to do something, do it. Just try and see what happens, because I didn't even think I could be where I am today. But if I had listened to that voice of doubt, I wouldn't be here. But because I said, you know what, I'm just going to try anyways. And that's just what I do every single day. I just show up and I try my best, and it's been working for me so far. So I think your children are your biggest cheerleaders, and they're really, really flexible. So I would tell them also not to be afraid that your children would, resent you for spending less time with them during PA school, because it will be an adjustment. But they're very flexible and they're so supportive. Like my daughter, she's like the first person I tell when I do well on an exam, and she's like, "Yay, mommy!"
Oh, that's so cute.
Like, yeah, she's so cute, and she's like, "I want to be a PA like mommy." And it's just the greatest thing ever.
Oh.
So it's all worth it in the end. You just have to remember that and keep pushing through, and lead by example for your children, and let them know, like, no, you never stopped me from pursuing my dream. If anything, you motivated me to get there. And I think that as long as parents can remember that and just stay strong, they can do it.
Yeah, I love your confidence in all of that. I mean, yeah. And that's something for everyone. It can be a hard leap, but I think at the end of the day, like, it's totally worth it.
Yeah,
for
if you
sure.
want it, you can do it, and don't give up, because of course it is going to be a lot harder, but it'll be much, like, it'll mean more in the end, you know, because it was a harder path. And so I just keep looking forward to the day when I get to graduation and I can actually start practicing, and I know it's coming, and I think that hopefully I can inspire other single parents to be like, look, I'm not alone. Like, there's at least one other person.
Yes. I know of at least 2 others.
Exactly. Right. I think it's countered, like, just as mindful, and hopefully that's something that can change, and that even PA school programs will see, like, oh, okay, you know, single parents are coming in and they're able to handle it, and, you know, so hopefully that'll start becoming more of a normalized thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for reaching out. Where can people kind of find you or connect with you? I know I have your email, but...
Yeah, of course. So I do actually have my PA Instagram page, so I definitely keep everyone up to date on my journey there, and they can find me on Instagram. It's PA_Leira, so PA_LEIRA. That's my first name backwards, in case you're wondering.
It is. As you said it, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, people are like, is your name Ariel or Leah? No, it's just backwards. But
there you go.
Yeah, and I also started my own podcast to kind of...
Oh, yes. I forgot you told me that. That is so cool, which I'll definitely link to that. I think that is so awesome.
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, the podcast, it's available on all major podcast platforms, and you can search under my name, Ariel Campa, or the title of the podcast is Becoming a PA Physician Assistant. It's still in its infancy, so we've only got maybe like 10 episodes, but I started it as another way to help other pre-PAs or new PA students by documenting along my journey of PA school. So I started with orientation week, and about every week or 2 weeks, I make a new episode, kind of let people know what it really looks like to be in PA school in real time, and
that's so cool.
Tips and advice that I learn along the way, like during my journey, and just kind of keep people updated on what it kind of looks like, especially now with COVID, being a PA student during these fun times. So yeah, definitely they can follow me on Becoming a PA, the podcast, and I just launched a website too, so www.becomingapa.com.
Okay.
So, yeah, many ways to reach out, and I would say don't hesitate to reach out if anyone wants to connect with me, or if it's a single parent, or just any pre-PA.
Yeah. Well, we have lots of Texas people, so I'm sure
big state.
questions about Texas things.
A lot of programs here, so that's good. But
yeah, well, no, that's all awesome. I'll link to all of that in the description, and so everyone can find you and all of that. So, but yeah, well, thank you so much.